me about it. Come on, let's talk about it. Change up the things you see. Open your mind to possibilities. Find your power, passion, and your purpose. You know it's time for you to walk in greatness. Let's murder mediocrity. Slay your goals, live out your dreams.
We are in the 21st century. That's not new and exciting news. I think, however, what is worth a conversation is exactly what is the 21st century. And I really want to dive into the era that we're leading in and living in. Because when you think about the qualities of leadership, what worked before doesn't necessarily work now. You might say, well, Linnell, what worked before? Well, when we think about our parents, many of us, and I'm talking more so to my Xer generation, Titus, you Gen X, brother? You in Gen X?
I think I'm in that millennial category.
Millennial? You a millennial?
Think so.
Okay.
Let me look it up.
All right. I know Ade is not Gen X. But all right. So you all may be millennials. So when I say our parents, I'm talking to the Gen Xers then, because your parents are likely my age. I'm dating myself a bit, but I waited a while to have children. But your parents are likely my age. So your parents are likely Gen X.
Yeah, we're millennials.
Right. You guys are millennials. I would say that, Titus, you and Ade have a better feel for what it takes to lead in this century than my generation and the generation before me. Because we're more likely to lead from a place of command and control, because that's what we experienced as leaders. Now, let me tell you what I mean by command and control. Coming out of World War II, leaders began to study the best generals. And what do generals have? They have command and control, which would make sense because we were still in the Industrial Revolution. And this is why I really want to talk about the 21st century in terms of the real true qualities of leadership. Fast forward, and here we are, 2023, and things are very different just for us, right? 2 generations later, just for us in terms of how we move and the type of leadership that we require. But I really want you all to understand this, because if you have a baby boomer leading you, especially a black baby boomer, that black baby boomer, and baby boomers, listen, don't get mad at me, right? Because I do love you. But this is just an opportunity to understand how, as times change, we must change. And leadership that worked yesterday does not work today. And by the way, this is one of the conversations I have when I come into corporate America, or when I'm talking to executive leaders, because as you can imagine, a lot of people who are in the capacity of executive, right, EVP and officer, etc., are baby boomers or older Xers who learn from baby boomers how to lead. And they're trying to figure out what's wrong with these young people who don't follow their leadership and who aren't afraid of them because, you know, they were afraid of their leader who had command and control over them. And when they try to exhibit the competencies of command and control in 2023, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It will not work in any business that is currently that is running in 2023. And if you have a boss who's a boomer or older Xer who exhibits command and control, you're trying to figure out what's wrong with them, you're going to learn today that there's nothing wrong. They just haven't necessarily transformed their leadership. And the way that they lead used to work. It used to, is this making sense already? Like,
oh, man.
it used to work, but it doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work anymore. And so not only are you confused working for them, but more than likely they're confused trying to figure out why people don't work for them the way they used to. Now, if you're an entrepreneur, if you work in corporate America, if you are a leader, if you work for a leader, then this show is for you. So I think I just covered just about everybody. This show is for you. Now, here's the thing. When I talked about how we relate to money, that show went viral. Like, everybody wants to be on their money. One of the major components for anyone in terms of your ability to make and keep money is, one, how you understand those that lead, and two, how you lead. And so if you were like, oh man, that show How We Relate to Money, it was so good. And you tuned into that one, you paid attention to that one. This is something you want to pay attention to because all of it's connected. Like all of it is completely connected. And I think sometimes we make the mistake of thinking that there are, these intersections and divides. And it's like, nah, man, when you talk about leadership, that it's a big, big deal. And so I just wanted to put that out here too. All right. Now, to start off, I want to tell a story. And this is a story. If you ever wondered how a brother can walk into these boardrooms and capture the attention of individuals who are much older and don't look like me, you're about to learn how. I'm about to give you some of my secret sauce, okay? One of the things that I've learned about older white men is that they like stories of even older white men. This makes sense. Right? So it's like, one of the things I will sit back and I'll ask myself, and I'm giving y'all all the secret sauce, right? But I'll ask myself, I say, okay, I got to go and I have to speak to a group of, and by the way, this is typically a closed group. So you're looking at no more than 20 to 25 people at max, but often it's like maybe 10 to 12. And these are the leaders of an organization, right? So, you go from 800 million, 1 billion and up, to 4 to 5 billion, and, these companies who are running these companies. And the first thing I realized is you have to capture a person's attention. You have to engage them. And you also have to establish some level of credibility. And as you can imagine, young, and I don't see myself as super young. I think age is, just about how you feel. I feel young. But I also see that if you look young, you can understand in some ways, the immediate, resistance that you face if you walk into a mature group of people. They're like, well, hold on. This is the person who's going to provide us perspective on executive leadership. So there's, and I see the question in their eyes when I'm like, good morning. They're like, and they're looking at their CEO or whomever like, what have you done? All right, so this is how I capture them. I'll tell them a story, right? One of the stories that I talk about, I use two people in particular, and through this series, I'm actually going to tell both of these stories, okay? One of the people that I talk about is Abraham Lincoln. The other one I talk about is General Dwight E. Eisenhower. So then right away, you already know I have their attention. It's like, let's talk about someone that you respect, all right? And the story I want to tell this morning is about Abraham Lincoln. And if you go back to 1863, July 1863, This is when the Battle of Gettysburg is fought. And as we know, or maybe some of you all don't know, this is the Battle of Gettysburg in the United States of America is the bloodiest conflict that has ever taken place on American soil. And to put it in context, 51,000, right, and some change, let's say 52,000 people lost their lives. Now, when you think about war, 51,000. Where I live, like the suburb I live in, the population is about 8,200. Okay? That's like wiping out not just that population, but then 4 or 5 other suburbs like that population. Now just imagine if something like that happened. You know, you woke up this morning, it's like this whole population got wiped. Like that would be devastating. Now in war, the thing that's not counted in casualties are injuries. Right? Now I really want to put this in context so we understand, because I want to talk about Abraham Lincoln and his leadership. Because a lot of us think that maybe we're leading very difficult people in difficult times or difficult business environments. And we forget that there are people who actually had to lead much worse circumstances. Right? So here you have a president and commander-in-chief who is not only concerned about one side of the war. Because if you're thinking about the United States in totality, then you have to be concerned about the other side as well. So not only how many souls are lost on the Union side, but also how many souls are lost on the Confederate side. Because either way, that hurts the cause of the Union. And so when I think about difficult leadership times, like one of the people I've thought about, or I've thought about in a great deal, is Abraham Lincoln. So much so that I went and I read his autobiography. I'm like, I need to know, like if I'm doing leadership work, and by the way, this is, if you're a leader, like this is something that you should really do. Like, check this out. But like, hear out the story. I really want you to hear out the story, because this is a phenomenal leadership lesson that we can learn from Abraham Lincoln. Okay. So the Battle of Gettysburg, you have 51,000 people lose their lives. And at the forefront of that particular conflict, there are two generals. So Abraham Lincoln obviously is the commander in chief, but he's a leader that has someone else leading for him, right? Because he can't be on the battlefield. This is leadership lesson number 1. One of the reasons you're not growing is because you can't scale, because you don't lead other people, because you can't lead other people, and because you don't trust other people. And think about the level of trust you have to have when you send a general out who is in command of control of thousands of men. Think about the leadership selection process that requires. That's just a tidbit. That's just a tidbit in terms of what this man had going on for him. Okay. Now, General Meade, Meade, was in command of the Union Army. All right. And on the other side of the Confederates was another general named, you guys know who this general was? What was his name?
Robert E. Lee.
Oh, no, Robert E. Lee.
Robert E. Lee, right? Very famous Confederate general. As a matter of fact, well, you know what's crazy about United States history is that most folks, when you talk about the Civil War, know Robert E. Lee, but they probably can't name the Union generals. Isn't that nuts? Anyway.
First time I heard about Meade.
First time you heard about General Meade, right? Who, by the way, is a bad boy. But, we don't hear about this guy. All right. Now, who we do hear about is Ulysses Grant, who became president later. And he was off west with another 100,000 troops or so. OK. So over east, you have General Meade. He's fighting the Battle of Gettysburg. And the battle begins to turn. OK. And General Meade is coming out on the winning side of this battle. And General Robert E. Lee begins to retreat. And so General Meade has a decision to make. Does he pursue? And think about all these leadership decisions. I really want us to, it's a lot of decisions that we have to make as leaders. But I really want you to put this in context, right? So he has to make a decision. He's already lost a lot of men, a lot of bloodshed, a lot of injuries, bloody war, 3-day conflict. And General Meade has to make a decision. Does he pursue Robert E. Lee, who, by the way, is retreating through the Potomac River? He's retreating through this Potomac River. And so General Meade looks at the current circumstance of his troops, kind of surveys everything that's going on, and he makes a decision that he is not going to pursue General Robert E. Lee. And this news makes it back to President Abraham Lincoln, who, by the way, is incredibly distraught. Incredibly distraught. Because how do you have this man, you beat him, you gotta, his tail is tucked and he's running, and you don't chase him down. So he's upset. And you can imagine why he's upset when you think about what's really at stake at the United States of America, but also the number of lives that are lost, the money that is being spent. There's a lot of factors as leaders that we have to look at, expenses, etc. He's looking at all these different factors. And it's like, man, you could have ended the war. Why didn't you? So what Abraham Lincoln does, by the way, if you remember, I told you I was speaking a couple of weeks ago in Philadelphia at the National Black NBA Association. That morning, this is how I started. So you're getting exactly what those leaders got. Well, probably not exactly, because it was a little more interactive with polls and things like that. But you're getting a version of what those leaders got this morning. So you definitely want to hear this, all right? By the way, session was sold out. Phenomenal feedback from the session. All right, so you got 100 plus executive leaders who were listening to this. I'm going somewhere, is my point. Okay? All right, so Abraham Lincoln's upset. And so he sits down to write a letter about his displeasure to General Meade. And he starts the letter, and I have it here. He starts the letter with, General, I am very, very grateful to you for the magnificent success you gave the cause of the country at Gettysburg. And I am sorry now to be the author of the slightest pain to you. So now here's, President Abraham Lincoln's a pretty good leader. He did the fundamentals of feedback. Here's what you did well. and here's where I'm about to give you some feedback. All right. So thank you for winning the war. And, right, ... and, okay. And then he goes in to say, but I was in such deep distress myself that I could not restrain some expression of it. So I need to tell you what I think you didn't do well. All right. I'm in such deep distress about this. I need to tell you what you didn't do well. And he goes on to write about his displeasure and him not chasing down General Robert E. Lee and bringing this war to a close. And he concludes the letter with, again, my dear General, I do not believe you appreciate the magnitude of the misfortune involved in General Lee's escape. Now, fast forward, and after President Lincoln's assassination, they find this letter in the drawer of the desk in his office. He never sent it. He never sent the letter. And of course, many historians and leadership experts have asked the question of why didn't he send this letter to General Meade? And here is the overwhelming conclusion. They believe that Abraham Lincoln, likely after some consulting and advice, right, from members of his cabinet, and by the way, Abraham Lincoln had fired a number of generals already. So he was running low on leadership expertise. Reminds me of the current situation we're in today. Like, we are running low on leadership expertise. And not only did he know that if he sent this letter to General Meade, that he likely would resign and say, well, if I'm not the right person, go find the right person. Right? I need you to trust the decisions I make on the battlefield. And back then, being a general was a little different, because nowadays generals leave from bunkers and they use communications and things like that to drive the war. But back then, generals were on the battlefield. Like, there were cannonballs exploding around them. OK, so these were some bad boys. OK, like, I got respect. I got respect for leaders who get their hands dirty. OK, so these ain't just, so he's on the battlefield and he made a decision. And I believe that President Abraham Lincoln sat back and said, man, I'm sitting in this office and I feel a certain type of way, but I don't fully understand the circumstance and situation that this man was in. And so I can sit here and pen a letter and talk about all the things I'm displeased with. But at the end of the day, he won the war. And so let me chill. Let me chill. On this particular decision, right away it tells me that Abraham Lincoln had what I will call one of the second qualities that every great leader needs to have: emotional intelligence. Now, emotional intelligence is one of those terms that gets tossed around now. And by the way, it was fairly new back when Daniel Goleman wrote his book, Emotional Intelligence, back in the early 2000s. You know, when that book came out, I had a chance to read it back like in 2004, 2005 or so. No, actually it was after that, 2005, 2006. And it was new. It was a new concept. And I think a lot of people believe they understand what it's like to lead with emotional intelligence. And by the way, even if you don't lead someone in particular, if you're married, you have a leadership role. You have a co-leading role. If you're a man in a marriage, you have a leadership role. If you're a woman in a marriage, you have a leadership role. If you desire to be in relationship, you desire a leadership role, because you have some level of influence over another person. And that's what I believe leadership is. As a matter of fact, the last time we spoke about leadership, I shared what I believe to be a definition on leadership that I'll read real quick to just, again, get us grounded in this whole idea of leadership. But leaders support a group by bringing different people together to work towards a common goal while tapping into the specific talents of the people in that group in a way that pushes them to do their work with an excellence that was unmatched before the leader came. Brothers who are married, are you pushing your spouse to do work with an excellence that was unmatched before you showed up? Sisters in a relationship, are you pushing that man to move with an excellence that is unmatched before you showed up? Is he worse or is he better because of you? Right? And this is a question, so we're all leaders. We're all leading in some capacity. So Abraham Lincoln had emotional intelligence. What is emotional intelligence? Very simply, the ability for me to strategically think about what I'm going to do or what I'm going to say and evaluate the emotional impact on the person I'm going to do it to or say it to. So I'm not just out here saying stuff and doing stuff. And by the way, one of the benefits of command and control is leaders back then to think about how you felt. So if you got a baby boomer leader or older Xer leader, I'm an Xer, so I ain't just, and you be like, I don't think they care about how I feel. You might be right. You might be right. Okay? And to those leaders, I'm going to tell you why it's important, because they be like, okay, here we go. Why should I care? They need to do what I told them. I'm going to tell you why in the 21st century you want to care. So stick with me. You want to care about how people feel that you lead, because things are changing. If you can't tell things, or they've already changed. All right. So emotional intelligence is this ability to understand how what I say to another person, what I do to another person might impact them emotionally. By the way, the people who are most successful as leaders have high emotional intelligence. Notice I haven't said anything about overall brilliance and intelligence, because they may not be the smartest in the business. But if they know how people feel and can communicate accordingly, they will float to the top. This is why some of you right now are in a capacity at work, and you're like, I know all of this and I keep getting passed over. I'm the brains behind it. How did they get promoted? It's like, well, are they more emotionally intelligent than you? Do they have better relationships than you? Because leading, as we established the last time we talked about leadership, is about how you relate, how you love, the level of intimacy that you can bring to a relationship to lead someone. This is leadership back in the 19th century. And in order for him to be effective in a way that changed the history of this nation, these are the qualities that he had to have. And you go back and look at those elections and the people that he ran against, you ask yourself, if one of those other people had won to become president, this nation, even our realities might be very different. I just want you to sit with that. That is the impact of great leadership. Great leaders change history. What I want to do is I want to go back in time. I want you to really listen to me. I'm going to go through this succinctly. I'm not going to ad lib. I'm not going to do anything. I want you to really listen to me. I want you to notice the pattern here. All right. But if I go back in history and I go back all the way to the Stone Age, because I think in order for us to really understand the context of time, sometimes we have to look at history and time in totality. And so in order for us to really understand what the 21st century is, let's use history to inform us. Okay? So the Stone Age lasted 5,000 years. It started in 8,000 BC and it went all the way to 2,000 BC. And then in 2000 BC came the Bronze Age, right? And if we combine the Bronze and the Iron Age, the Age of Metal, then that lasted 3,000 years. 3,000 years, all the way to 400 AD, after Christ's death. So Joshua was around during the Iron Age, like to really put it in perspective, okay? The Iron Age. And after Christ's death, 400 AD, we move to what is called the Middle Ages, or even called the Dark Ages, okay? This is when a lot of the plagues and, the bubonic plague and all these things hit Europe and wiped them out. And this is also when the Moors came through and cleaned them up. Now that part of, this is why they call it the Dark Ages. You hear about some of the Victorian stuff, but, no one tells you the story of, the North Africans going into Europe and ruling Europe and building universities and cleaning them up. Nobody talks about that. All right. But this age lasted 1,500 years. And if you talk to a European historian, he would call it the Dark Ages. But I I have what I believe my thoughts around why they call it the Dark Ages. Okay, because it was also an age of African dominance. Now, that lasted for 1,500 years. You noticing a trend? All the way through 1750. Now, if you've listened to me on a normal basis, then you know that something very interesting happened in the early 1700s. Because that's when the construct of race, actually the mid 1600s, the construct of race was created. All right? It was commissioned by a Portuguese king. He had Gomez come in and write, kind of write this whole thing on race, etc. That became what really gave some level of justification to the slave trade. And the slave trade itself is what created, or in many ways, started the industrial age. The industrial age, right? So the industrial age lasted from 1760 to 1990 for a total of 250 years. Now, 1990, for those of us who are Xers and Boomers, you were born when, Ade? 95. Yeah. All right. So you didn't even exist at the end of the industrial age. Think about that. All right. And right now, for leaders, that's context, because if Ade, who is in his late 20s, didn't exist at the end of the industrial age, and you try to lead him or manage him like he grew up in the industrial age, it won't work. It's like, who is this person and what do they want? Right? These young people are so disrespectful. Maybe you don't get it. Maybe you're the one that's disrespectful. We're going to talk about that too, okay? Anyway, after 1990 came the information age. And I would assert that the information age has either ended or is about to end right now. So in essence, that means that the information age has lasted 33 years. All right. Now, my estimate was that it would last 35 years. I think I was a bit off. I think it's over now. Information age is over. Now, when I say that, this is important context before we go to break, because I got a question for you before we go to break. When I say that, the industrial age ended in 1990, but there are elements of the industrial age still in place. That's very important to remember. School is a great example of that. We know industrial age, school was all about, making sure that there was time for harvest, and then the children would go to school after harvest. All right, that's why this school all went along, and then we need them a farm, and so they were out during the summer. So why we do school the way we do now is a remnant of the industrial age, how things had always been done. And there are a lot of things that are remnants of the industrial age. The same way there are a lot of remnants of the information age. So real quick, before we go to break, the Stone Age lasted 5,000 years. The Metal Age, bronze and iron, lasted 3,000 years. The Middle Ages, Dark Ages, lasted 1,500 years. The Industrial Age lasted 250 years. I'm now saying the Information Age lasted 33 years. Do you see the trend? And then the question I have for you is, what's next? Because if I'm a leader, I should know. I should know the context with which I'm leading. And this is why I say many of us don't understand the 21st century. What's next? I believe that we are already in the era of robotics and artificial intelligence. Robotics and artificial intelligence. Now, I'm going to say something to the audience right now. We're going to stay on the qualities of great leadership. But I want to speak to my community real quick, because let me use an example. Just recently, the workers at UPS, United Parcel Services, right? They just won. They were on strike. They just won what I believe is a phenomenal contract. where at a minimum now, the workers at UPS are making $49 an hour, right? So ladies, if a brother in brown tries to holler at you, you might want to take his number, right? Because if you start to add that up and you do the math on a little overtime, he's making over six figures. So he's making more than some brothers in suits. You know, sometimes we get caught up on things like the brother in brown might be good marriage material. All right. Not, you know, if he's a good man. OK, but let's say the finances are in order. All right. I mean, that's OK. Now, when you give the brother in brown your number, don't say it right away. But if you plan to be with him, you need to say, hey, babe, what you going to do next? What you gonna do next? Because as we enter, or as we sit in the era of robotics and artificial intelligence, what do you think the leaders at UPS are surmising right now? Do you think they're happy about losing that strike? Do you think they feel a certain kind of way right now that they unionized against us and they had a strike? Like, they don't feel good about that. And I would imagine that they said, okay, all right, you won one. But watch this. I'm going to get a robot with artificial intelligence that flies and delivers packages. Now, I'm going to get back to great leadership qualities, but this is why we have to understand the era that we live in. Do you know that right now there is legislation in place in the United States of America that if you have a drone, it must be registered? Now, when they start registering things, why do you think they do that? Because I need to know who has what and where. And why do they want to know who has what and where? Because they're about to be a lot more. There was a time where you didn't have to have a driver's license to drive, right? Right? You just roll on down the road, right? And then they were like, there's starting to be too many cars. We need to know who's driving, when, and where. And so they were like, we need them to register. And they gave you a driver's license, right? And think about it, it's not even really constitutional. Uh-oh, I'm going to get myself in trouble. Let me, like, we're not even talking about that, right? But this is one of the ways they control. Why would they want to control who's in the air, right? Because it's about to get licensed. It's going to come a time where you can't just put that drone in the air. Oh, I just want to take a picture. I want a dope video. Nope. You're going to have to be a month out, 2 months. I'm telling you, you know, you want a photo shoot, you're going to have to be 3-4 months out. So your drone, because otherwise it'll collide with a UPS drone, an Amazon drone that's dropping off a package. And the brother that's making six figures right now, if he is not trying to figure out how to be the one that's driving the drone, he's going to be out the job. All right. A part of being a great leader is knowing your era. I'm dropping knowledge right now. I hope y'all get it. I hope you get it. I hope you understand how many of us in our community are the ones who have the jobs in brown. Think about how those salaries are holding up the community right now. You say the community is already in trouble. The community is already in dire straits. Who do you think these changes are going to impact the most? And you can say, oh, man, you know, I wish he'd talk about something else if you want me to. But this is what we need to be talking about. This is what we need to be figuring out, man. This is what's next. Somebody just told me the drone does not have to be registered. I'm telling you it's coming. That's what I'm saying. If you're a leader We are now living in a time that I call change squared. Anything right now, today's date is what? September 24th, 2023. By September 24th, 2024, we would have experienced exponential change. Change unlike anything that has ever been seen to mankind before. We would have experienced technology changes. We would have experienced all types of process policy change. And sometimes we don't even know that it's being written in the bill. Like, change is here and it's moving very fast. Now, let me define. So now that we understand this, let me define for us the 21st century. All right, let me define for us the 21st century. I hope we get this. I hope we get this. By the way, I think it's a certain size drone. Like, look it up. Look it up. Like I always say, don't believe me, look it up. Like, cause you'll find out more than I know. I don't have a drone. Well, I do have a drone. It's small, and I don't fly because I don't have time. So I'm not trying to figure out how to register. But y'all get my point. All right. Okay. Let's study the 21st century. I'm gonna go through this really fast because I really want to spend time on the qualities, right? But here's how I look at the 21st century, you guys. And I want you to look at it the same way. All right. Number one, 21st century started January 1st, 2001. Not 2000. That was the end of the 20th century, I'm sorry. Okay? 2001. What happens in the first year? Think about this. What happens in the first year of the 21st century?
Good or bad?
9/11.
9/11.
9/11 defined the 21st century in ways that I think we don't even contextually understand.
Agreed.
We lost our rights in the 21st century. The Patriot Act. And we willingly, no, we need to know everything. I'm not a terrorist. They can know everything about me. I don't care. Right? We didn't even fight. That was the first year. Like, I think the Patriot Act was passed like 2003, something like that. Like, it didn't take 2-3 years for us to give up our rights. That's how we came into the 21st century. We went into Afghanistan. This term terror took on a brand new meaning because when I was a child, terror meant, Nightmare on Elm Street. Okay, that was terror, not terrorist. All right. And the stock market fell out the bottom. And by the way, I was in my early 20s when I saw my father's entire ESOP and 401k go to trash. So mind you what that did to me mentally, right? Like, boom, one thing, go to trash. Like, nothing. He had worked 36 years. Both my mother and father were dependent on that. And I know I'm talking to folks who get it. Like, you shaking your head right now, like, man, it changed everything for me. That was the beginning of the 21st century. Okay? Then 2002, unemployment spiked. Switzerland, that was a neutral country that for 49 years was not a part of NATO, decided all of a sudden, hello, NATO. Right? So now, a country that stood alone decides I'm no longer going to stand alone. What makes you think you're going to stand alone? Anyway, a whole country, right? But LinkedIn was created in 2002. In 2001, Wikipedia and TripAdvisor started. So I'm not just telling you a story of the 21st century that involves everything falling apart. I'm also showing you a story in the 21st century as leaders. When you innovate, you rise to the top. Okay? So when I say, the brothers in brown, like there's an opportunity to innovate right now. I think we're too comfortable. We stay too comfortable. We got to remain uncomfortable. 2003, we move into Iraq. By then, they were able to convince the American people that Saddam Hussein had something to do with the towers. Thought it was Osama bin Laden. But no, he has weapons of mass destruction. And they already blew something up. We don't want them to lose nothing. And we go in. Now we know that was all a farce. But again, I did a whole show 2 shows, right? On propaganda. Propaganda, right? Hey, like, that's why you listen every Sunday. You know, I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, they ran propaganda on us. They played us. We went to war. In 2004 was the Color Revolution. Now, if you don't know what the Color Revolution is, it's when 5 countries all over Europe and parts of Asia, Eurasia, became democratic without firing a shot. Now, that's something. That's something. Why don't you think they teach the Color Revolution in school? They're not going to teach you how 5 governments were overthrown without a shot. They're not talking about the color. I would think that would be good education in a democratic country. Our textbooks aren't updated with that. Many of you never heard of it. Okay. Now, Facebook was born in 2004. Not that long ago. Not even 20 years. Not even 20 years, man. Right? Then in 2005, YouTube was introduced. 2006, Twitter was introduced. In 2007, the iPhone was introduced. But then check this out around leadership, right? Because we're talking about leadership. Check this out about leadership. North Korea conducts its first nuclear test. Oh, so we'll go to Iraq? Hold on. Nepal overthrows its monarchy. And this is a big deal because that was a 400-year-old monarchy that got overthrown in a matter of days. Ain't nobody teaching this. India elects its first president, female president. First female president. You ever spent time in India? That is amazing. Okay? And then in 2008, we have another economic crisis. Now, here's the thing. I'm giving it all to you today. Okay? Now you understand why, like, if I'm 30 minutes in with executives, they like, oh, maybe he's not so bad. Maybe he's different. Oh, not a bad choice. Right? What a flair. Okay, now, get this about the economy. All right? I'm about to drop some knowledge on you. Back in the 90s, when we would have a recession, typically the recession would last no longer than 6 months. Like, just wrap your mind around that. And by the way, that was long. That was long. In 2001, when we went into recession, that recession lasted 13 months. That was long. And that was all produced artificially by the Twin Towers, right? Falling. Then in 2008, we have another recession. And that recession lasts 70 months. What is this telling you? Now, we just did this whole, you get where I'm going? Like, we just talked about the errors and how they're speeding up. So the errors are speeding up and the recession downturns are slowing down. Now, let's go back. Ade, Titus, you weren't around. You want to listen? I don't know if you listen to the show on Sundays. But Ade, remember last year? We're early last year, 2022. I'm like, hey, we might be headed towards a recession, you guys. Nobody was talking about recession. Then July, in the third quarter of 2022, I was like, we're in a recession. And I even told you all, I had people emailing me like, you can't say that. You're not an authority on that. I haven't heard anything about a recession. And I'm like, look up what a recession is. Right? A recession is when GDP in the country falls back 2 quarters in a row. And nobody was talking about a recession. By the end of the year, in the fourth quarter, they were asking, are we going to be in a recession? I'm like, we are in a recession, right? But this is how the propaganda they push, right? They don't want you to know what's happening when it's happening. This is the propaganda they push. And so we are now, they're like, we're in a recession. They say it real quiet. Like, you don't even hear nothing about it. We're in a recession. We're in a recession. Right? And it's slow. You look at business earnings, slow. And it ain't. If we look at the trend, it's not going anywhere. Now, you do with that information what you want to do with it. Right? But leaders, the recession ain't going nowhere. Are you preparing yourself financially? Are you preparing your business financially? That was a whole ad lib. Like, I ain't even mean to go there. Anyway, 2008, global economy skids into recession. We elect Barack Obama as the first African American president of the United States. Things are so bad. I'm just going to say it. Things are so bad, white folks are like, give us anybody who will inspire me. Give us anybody to get us out of this mess. Well, I normally wouldn't vote for a black man, but it's so bad. Right? Okay. And it's happening all over the world because even in Australia, they elect their first female prime minister. Then, this is what happens often. Folks have Barack remorse and they go to the other side. The pendulum swings and they elect Donald Trump in 2016. And then we go into a pandemic. This is, if you really want to understand what's happening right now, this is what's happening. Like, to really gain clarity on what's happening in the United States of America, what's happening around the world, what's happening to the global economy, this is what's happening. Now, it's not all bad. There are always, when we look at the 12 universal laws, we learn that there is the yin-yang effect. Well, for everything that happens, there's something good about it. What I want us to focus on in our community is how do we squeeze the juice out of this? Like, how do we get better? Here's the bad. Terror was introduced. We've been at war since. Economic recession and unemployment that has gone up and down in the 21st century in a way that has been so volatile like any other time. So in the 21st century, no jobs. Then lots of jobs, then no jobs, and it feels slow. But all this has happened, you all, in the last 22 years. Like, put that in context. Okay? But here's the good. Innovation. Now, notice all the innovation for my people who feel like you don't have to get involved with technology. You want to put off technology. All the innovation is technical. All the innovation is technical. All right. And you have a democratic revolution all around the world that they're not educating us on. But inspirational leaders rise to the top. Anyone who can inspire. Now, it don't matter what you look like, right? You can be black. You can be orange. Y'all get that? It doesn't matter. If you're inspirational, they will follow you. Right? And let's be clear. You can say Donald Trump's not inspirational. But if you really listen to him, hold on. Like, come on. Like, no cap. Like, no cap. Like, for real. Let's be real. If you really listen to the guy, right, you can't do nothing but raise your eyebrows and be like, well, you know, if I didn't know better, okay. All right. So inspirational leadership, whether you like it, like the leader or not, it makes a difference now. It makes a difference now. You can't just be no humdrum, drab leader nowadays. Like, you got to come with a little juice. All right. Jack Welch has a quote where he says that every manager over 35 should be considered dangerous. Every manager, that's including me. Every leader, every manager over 35 should be considered dangerous, and here's why. Because the rhythm of business hasn't changed in 40 years, yet everything else has. And we just saw how in the last 22 years of the 21st century, everything changed. But many of us still are in a mental context and mindset of the 90s. And you're trying to figure out why your business don't work. You're trying to figure out why you ain't been promoted. You're trying to figure out why you're struggling economically. You're trying to, and I'm giving you all the answers right now. I'm giving you all the answers right now. Okay? If you were 10 years old at the beginning of the 21st century, you'd be 32 right now. And many folks listening to this are leading 32-year-olds, leading millennials, and you don't understand them because you don't understand the era we live in. You don't understand them. That's why they looking at you like, and then they get that, they see the world differently. They see the world probably correctly. And then you're still acting and moving like it's 1990. And they like, man, please. Only reason I show up because I need a check. Only reason I show up is because I need a check. And let me tell you, if I figure out how to make money some other way, I'm done. And you know what's going to happen? The way technology and artificial intelligence is moving, they're going to figure out how to make money another way, and you are going to be in trouble. Unless you transform your leadership. Now let's get to the juice. I talked about the study in North America that found that only 11% of leaders could be considered effective. Now, let's talk about the context of this study first, because I know people are like, 11%? 11%? I mean, because that's like less than 1 in 10. But hold on. Let's just look at let's look at what's happening around us. Like, is that so hard to believe? Is that so hard to believe that most leaders are incompetent? Is that so difficult to believe? When you look at the quality of education, when you look at the budget in Illinois, I could keep going, but I'm not. Y'all get the point, right? I could just keep going down the list of things. Like, does it take 8 years to balance a budget? If you can't balance it in 4, why are we re-electing you? Because you got money and you can run the most ads and you have the best propaganda? I mean, and by the way, if you mad right now, like, don't talk about my governor or don't talk about, it's because you have been deceived by the propaganda. Because let's be clear, none of it's working. None of it's working well. Like, so all the facts lead to leaders are ineffective. But hold on. Let's talk about the context of the survey. So the University of Chicago with the consulting group came together and they wanted to evaluate what effective leadership is. And in this evaluation, what they basically did is they went to the people that leaders led, and they put together a survey, and they said, tell us what you find to be the effective and ineffective qualities of your leader. And after the survey of thousands of people, 6 particular qualities of leadership floated to the top. And then they went back and they said, okay, now let's measure leaders based on these 6 qualities. Let's see how many leaders actually lead with these 6 qualities. So they ran another survey. They said, does your leader have these 6 qualities? Do they lead with these 6 qualities? And what they found is only 11% of leaders that, by the way, they didn't survey the leaders, because if you survey leaders, it'd be 100% are effective. Right? Because you ask me, so Lynell, are you an effective leader? Absolutely, I'm an effective leader. You know, like, can we talk to your team? Right? Well, we're going to talk to your team and find out from them, right? And then, you know, survey comes back different. Survey says there are 6 qualities. The first of which is a leader who is respectful. A leader who is respectful. Now, let's talk about respect. Well, let me ask these gentlemen in the studio. We're going to take our time with these qualities, so we're not going to get through them all. I don't want to speed through the qualities, because then what will happen is, this is what happens, because this is human behavior. I'll go through the qualities, and people will be like, 2, 3, that's me, 4, yeah, 5, oh, yeah, 6, right? And if I don't really dive into what these qualities mean, then you'll walk away thinking that you have these qualities when in essence you don't. In essence you don't, right? And let me give you a personal example, because when I was a leader in corporate America early in my leadership, if you had asked me, Linnell, are you a respectful leader? I would have told you absolutely, 100%. And I would have said it with my truth, with my truth, right? But guess what I found out? Via surveys, I wasn't. Let me tell you a story. So 2005, I start with this brand new company. All right. I come in as a senior manager, and the company I left, I was leading there. And when I left, the people were crying. Right. Now, they were crying because I believe they were sad to see me go as their leader. You know, I'm leaving to go to another job, and they're like, oh, man, I'm going to miss you so much. And it's like, because, we don't like change as human beings. And then whether they like me or not, it was a change. I perceived it as, they must love me. Like, I must be a good leader. People cry when you leave. I must be a pretty good leader. And so I walk into this new company. I'm feeling pretty good about myself. I'm feeling pretty good about my leadership. I'm a young leader. It's 2005. And in this particular organization, they hold a leadership forum where all the leaders from all over the organization, this is 2005 before the recession, so companies have money to do stuff like this. All the leaders from all over the organization come into Chicago at a big forum. And at this forum, they had an award ceremony for the top leaders in the company. And the top leaders in the company were distinguished by their teams based on a survey. And I remember seeing this for the very first time, and these dynamic leaders go to the front, and I thought to myself, oh my, I like awards. Next year, I am going to be a dynamic leader. I'm going to be at the front, on the stage with the award. Everybody at this company will see what a great leader I am. And so fast forward 1 year, it's 2006. I go to the leadership forum. I'm excited about the leadership forum. And I remember we get to this part of the ceremony, of the agenda, and they begin calling dynamic leaders to the stage. And you know how you sit when you expect someone to call your name and you're in the audience? Like you slide your butt to the edge of the seat. I folded up all my papers. I put them beneath my seat, because I gotta get up and go, right? Because I'm one of the best leaders in the company, and I'm sure I'm going to be on stage. And it was all in alphabetical order. So they're going through the letters, and then they get to H, and I'm on the edge of my seat, and then they go to I. H-I-J-K-L-M. What do you mean? I'm not one of these leaders? So anyway, I'm like, man, my team got it all wrong. At the end, I go out, I get my survey results. I rip the envelope open, and I start to look through the survey, and I see my scores. And the lowest score is respect. Wait a second. I'm a black man. I'm a black leader. I've been disrespected by so many people as who I work for. How is it that I'm perpetrating disrespect on the people that work for me? How is this possible? This can't be true. And this is, by the way, when you get feedback like this, the first thing we think as leaders is, it can't be true. Not me. Not me. There's no way that I'm disrespectful. No way. Anyway, fast forward, and a member of HR joins me and my team, and we begin to have a discussion about my survey results. And we get to respect, which, by the way, is my lowest score, right? And I'm sharing this story with you all because, like, a lot of us think we're a certain way, and we're not. I thought I was respectful and I wasn't. So anyway, we're talking and the HR person says, can anyone give Linnell a little context into why you said you feel like he's not respectful? And it's quiet. And then one of my stars gets up. One of my stars raises their hand. One of my stars, like this is, I thought we had a good relationship, raises her hand. She says, well, sometimes when we're in our one-on-one, like you'll pick up your phone and read a text message. Now, you got to understand the context of my role. Like I was running global operations and I would get service levels in my phone and text messages about what was going on in the operations. And as an operations leader, I need to understand what's going on in the operations because you never know. I might get a phone call from the vice president and I need to be on cue. And so as she's saying this is what's going through my mind because what do we always do? What do we always do? We excuse our behavior. We justify our behavior. No, I'm respectful. You just don't understand. And we forget that as leaders, it's not about what we think. It's about what they think. It's about their reality. Anyway, she says what she has to say, and other individuals on my team, stars on my team, are all sharing the same type of feedback. And here's what I learned about respect that I think sometimes we misunderstand as leaders. What I have been doing as a leader is I have been leading with the golden rule. What's the golden rule? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Right? But the golden rule is selfish because it's based on who? Me. It's based on what you can and can't do to me. It's not me checking in what I day. It's me saying, well, this wouldn't bother me, so it shouldn't bother I day. That's disrespectful. That's disrespectful. And respect as a quality requires a certain level of intimacy. Because in order for me to know what's respectful to our day, I got to know our day. I got to check in with our day. Right? I got to check in with you if I lead you. Which means as a leader, I have to be able to slow down just enough to understand my people. Well, Linnell, you don't understand. I mean, it's the business environment, yeah, but what's more important than the people? What's more important than the people? And what I began to understand about myself and my own leadership is that I have been leading with the golden rule, but I have failed to intimately connect with the people I was leading in a way that, in many ways, how I was leading occurred as disrespectful. So the concept, and see, this is why I had to break it down, because if I say characteristic number 1, respect, people be like, check. It's like, nah, it ain't that easy. It ain't that easy. Like being a respectful leader ain't that easy because in order for me to be a respectful leader, it means I have to understand intimately what respect is for every person that I lead. Every person. Which means that respect requires that I get to know the people that work for me intimately. Remember the last time we talked about this a couple of weeks ago? I said leadership requires love. Good leadership requires LOVE. You gotta care. And that's characteristic number 1. And already, you understand why only 11% are effective? Is this making sense? That's just one characteristic. That's just one quality of a leader. One quality. That's why we definitely need a part 2. Somebody said the so-called leadership in Chicago don't even know one another. Right. And then, they think about this, right? For a political leader, you have to know your constituents. Like you have to really get to know. You have to be intimately involved. Here's the number one thing. You ever notice, I think elections are backwards. Here's why I think elections are backwards. When a leader's trying to be elected, they go door to door. Good morning. How are you? I know it's a Sunday morning, you're headed to church, but you know, my name is Linnell Harris and I'm running for mayor. I just wanted to make sure that you knew who I was, what I stood for, and that you would vote for me in the upcoming election. You know, November's very close. All right, you have a wonderful day. Oh, y'all look wonderful. Oh, look at her, so cute. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Right? I want your vote. But then I get in the office and you never at my door again? Ever? Ever? Never? Ever? Ever at my door again? Isn't that backwards? Isn't that backwards? I mean, if we're just going to stick with characteristic number one, in order for me to be a respectful leader and understand the people, I would imagine that after the election, I have to spend more time in the community than I did before the election. Doesn't that make sense? Doesn't that just make sense? Like, isn't that just 2 + 2 = 4? And then we wonder why our leaders fail us, because they don't even know us. They don't even know what you need. The streets in my neighborhood are awful. Well, they would know that if they were riding down the streets. But, you know, once they get in office, they avoid the streets. Why? Because I'm not safe. I need my people around me. I need security. Why? Because you've been disrespectful. Woo! Leadership quality number 2. A leader that leads with integrity. Well, I think that's self-explanatory right there. I think that, you know, do what you say you're going to do. Do what you say you're going to do. Do what you say you're going to do. Somebody just asked in the feed, is Deion Sanders a great leader? You want to know why Deion Sanders is like popping to the top in leadership? It goes right back to what I said about what's happening in the 21st century. Young people want inspiring leaders. Right? I don't even have to get into these competencies, but at a very basic level, he inspires us. At a very basic level, inspirational leadership is just like, that's just at this point, that is a bottom barrel quality of leadership. If you're not inspiring, it's like you're not capable of being effective in the 21st century. And that's like, let's take the 6 qualities that I'm going to share off the table. And I started with inspirational leadership and emotional intelligence, right? Like that's just bar none what's necessary for a person to float to the top. Those young men follow him because he's inspiring. But let me tell you something. I don't know if you saw the speech from the Oregon coach. If I was the Oregon Duck walking on the field, I'd have been inspired. And that's the only thing that was going to match the fervency and the fire that Colorado had. Another inspirational leader. If you had a coach say, we're better than them, and we go out here and beat them, okay? They would have got trashed. I'm telling you, we're emotional beings, and great leaders understand that part of how you lead is to activate the emotional qualities of the people that you lead. All right? That's just, that's basic. That's 2 + 2 leadership. Okay. All right. Integrity, personal integrity. Let me end with this. Integrity, in terms of leadership, is the basic quality of just doing what you say. And that can be difficult. That can be difficult. I'm going to give you a raise. And then the economy changes. The budget changes. Right? What most leaders will do is say, hey, you know, when I said that, we really didn't understand that we were going into a recession. When we look at our budget now, this is what it's saying. They'll give you all this blah, blah, blah. And the person's sitting there thinking, wow, what a letdown. Wow, what a letdown. Like, you put your word out there. You said, and you didn't. You didn't deliver. You did not deliver. And as simple as it it seems, to do what you say, it is incredibly difficult. I mean, think about marriage. Think it's difficult. Just wait till we get home, baby. All right, well, then you don't deliver. I was tired. I didn't. Like, it's, I can, man, look, it's real easy for people to say, I do what I say I do. No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. Like, our feelings get in the way, circumstances get in the way, situations get in the way. Like, one of the fundamental challenges of being human is staying committed. It is a fundamental challenge of being human. It's staying committed. Think about entrepreneurs who are leading. If you're an entrepreneur, are you doing what you say you're going to do? You say you're going to deliver a particular type of quality or a particular type of product. Are you delivering that type of product? 100% guarantee, refund anytime. Are you delivering? You get where I'm going? Oh, well, see, that's different. When you bought this, it was, well, you said 100%. And then you wonder, like, why are my sales falling? Why don't? Because people talk. Here's another way to think about integrity. We'll end with this. We'll do part 2 next week. This right here, you want to show up at 7 a.m. like next, you know what I'm saying? Like, you want to be right there, waiting on the live, waiting on the show. Because I'm going to start with characteristic number 3. You don't want to miss it. And we're going to continue. Let me tell you, if you enjoyed this, like, you're getting a dose of what leaders get when I step up. You know, like, this is, now you see, like, oh, okay, now I get why the old white men listen, Linnell. I get it now, right? Right? And I'm saying that in a, well, it is what it is, really, right? But I'm telling you, like, this is good stuff. I know it is. I know it is. All right? Integrity. Another way to think about integrity in coaching, we have what we call personal integrity. And when I'm working with my clients, the idea of integrity is your intentions, your words, and your actions all aligned. And the idea of personal integrity is that when I operate with integrity, with personal integrity, like, I can't measure our day's integrity. I can't measure Titus's integrity, right? Only you all know your integrity. But when you are aligned with your personal integrity, it makes you powerful, individually powerful, right? Because I'm aligned with the commitments and intentions that I have. My words line up with it too. And then also my actions. Let me give you an off-par example of how this works. I was coaching a gentleman once who was having problems in his marriage. And he was like, well, I have integrity in my marriage. I said, well, let's walk through this. I said, the commitment is the vows you gave at your wedding, right? And then, all right, let's lay out the vows. Only be with her, provide, protect, those things, right? All right, so let's line that up. Are you doing those things in terms of are you committed to those things? Yes, I'm committed to those things. Okay, let's look at your actions. He's like, well, yeah, my actions are in place. Like, I haven't cheated on my wife. I haven't done, okay, all right, let's look at your words. When we got to words, he got quiet. He said, wait a second, what do you mean words? Like, what do you mean by words? I said, this ain't what you say. Like, what you say, because remember, words have power. I did a whole show on words, right? Words have power. He was like, oh, man, I wonder if that's the problem. I said, what do you mean? I'm with my boys, I talk a little crazy. I might see somebody walking by, I say what I'm going to do. I'm not going to do it, though. I said, well, you are literally giving up your power. And then it's changing the vibration. Again, remember vibrations? And the frequency that you bring into your marriage simply by saying the wrong things. As leaders, we have to be fully aligned. Commitment, action, words. And when you're not, guess who sees it first? The people that you lead. Why? Because human beings are incredibly good at identifying frauds. We're really good at it. We're always looking for it. Can I trust you? Is Linnell really as good as he say? Well, is he really, like we ask questions like, is this true? Like, I'm sure when I'm talking, people are Googling things. Let me see. Right? We're really good at it, and we'll catch it. Hey, my inspired peoples. Linnell Harris here, certified ontological coach and trainer. I'm so excited that you're watching the channel. By the way, did you know you can catch the show live at 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. every Sunday morning? You can. All you have to do is go to my Facebook stream, Coach Linnell Harris, catch the stream live, or you can listen to the radio show via iHeart at WVON 1690 AM. But since you're here, if you love the content, I ask that you share it, like this particular video, and subscribe to the channel. I hope you're having a great day.